We're Disney cruising with tiny humans, lessons learned, tips. We're going to get you ready so you're all prepared. That's today on the Diz Unlimited's DCL Show. Hello and welcome to Diz Unlimited's DCL Show. I'm Chris Vorbeck, one of the agents at Dreams Unlimited Travel. Thanks so much for joining us. Thrilled you're here. The Diz Unlimited team, well, we got to cruise on the Disney Fantasy, and we've been breaking down everything we got to learn in recent shows. But one of the members of our group was 3-year-old Owen. We're going to talk about that entire experience, everything from what's it like having what stateroom do you choose? The infamous question, 5:45 or 8:15 dining. Oh, so much stress about that. Even Bippity Boppity Boutique. We're going to talk about all that stuff. And I'm also lucky I got to travel with this amazing team. Let me introduce them all. My DCL Show colleague, Dreams Unlimited travel agent, Elaine Edwards. Hello, Elaine.
Hi, friends.
And Hannah Anderson, her most important title is she gets to be Owen's mother. But Hannah is also part of the Diz Unlimited team. She also is a Dreams Unlimited travel agent. And hello, Hannah.
Hello. I like that introduction. So does Owen.
Yeah, well, I know when I first had a kid, like everyone's referred to me as my son Nick's dad.
Right.
It was like, hold on, I'm a person, but you get it's not a bad title, right?
It's kind of like when you go to the dog park and I know all the dogs' names. I don't know any of the owners' names, you know?
Exactly. And of course, we have an amazing producer, Jimmy Valdez. He is an international man of mystery today, so we're not going to see him on camera, but he's back there making us all look pretty. So thank you all for being here. Before we dive in, as I used to say, a word from our sponsor, this show, along with everything we do at the Diz Unlimited, DCL Fan. It's all brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel. We are experts at helping you plan a magical Disney cruise, a visit to a amazing Disney theme park, your Universal adventure. Guess what? They have a new park coming, I hear. Oh, I know. Even other cruise lines, there's no additional cost to book your trip with Dreams Unlimited Travel. None. But we're going to give you insights about your Disney cruise, your Disney trip, your Universal adventure. And by booking your cruise with Dreams Unlimited Travel, you'll get a shipboard credit of up to $1,000, depending on the price of your cruise. I know you always hear nothing's for free. This is one of these great cases where you get free money to spend on board, and it doesn't cost you anything. Not bad. And the best way to get started, dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. And I always mention this by way of transparency. We got to cruise on the Disney Fantasy. We paid for this cruise. So we were paying guests, just like everybody else. There are itineraries where Disney will host us. Like many of us got to do a preview cruise of the Disney Treasure recently. And I see people out there who scoff and somehow say that influences us. Well, I'll tell you, at least for me, it doesn't. But we paid for this one. So it was our good money, or Dreams good money. So second, yes, we are all Dreams Unlimited travel agents. This is our job. But guess what? We do this because we really like Disney and we love Disney Cruise Line, and we want you to have the best time possible. Our job, both here on this podcast and as agents, is to give you information so you can make the best decision for you and your family. We hope you book with Dreams, of course. It allows us to do this podcast. But if you don't, we still want you to have an amazing trip and enjoy these amazing ships. Okay. Enough of that. Let's talk about the Disney Fantasy and Owen. So, Hannah, I'm going to start with you because I want to start off with the larger kind of high-level question about why Disney cruise, first off, and Disney's so associated with families, but there are other cruise lines that are thinking about kids as well. And what's the right age to Disney cruise with a kid? Owen was 3. He's a platinum member already, platinum cruiser already?
I wish we're slowly working on that. But so actually, this was only his second cruise. Perfect age. I think each age, each developmental milestone, there are things to look forward to that make it fun and different, and you create new memories. I joke all the time now that I have a toddler and a very active 3-year-old. I'm like, you know what? The baby days weren't that hard. They slept a lot. You just had to worry about them like eating and sleeping and not all these other things. So I know for me, this past cruise, I almost enjoyed it more with a 3-year-old.
Almost.
Almost. And
Yeah.
I will tell you, I fell in love with Disney Cruise Line as an adult, pre having kids. And so up until 3 years ago, my experience with Disney Cruise Line was Serenity Bay at Castaway Cay. It was the adult lounges. It was Sensa Spa. It had nothing to do with cruising with kids. So it is, even though I knew all these things, experiencing it is very different. But he's at an age where, he is talking more, and obviously we're creating memories that way. And then I know the big thing we're going to talk about is he is 3 now. And what does that mean? He can go to the Oceaneer Club instead of the It's a Small World nursery. So I think really, a couple of things depending on your family dynamic and your kid's interests too. My kid is really into the Pixar films, I guess, like probably everyone else. And so the splash pads on board, specifically the Disney Fantasy, is Finding Nemo themed. There's things that he is really interested in. So, and he's going through a pirate phase now, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. So,
yeah, awesome. Elaine, you have kids who now are older. When did you
way
first
older than
take
3?
older than 3, right? We've done that phase. Talk about how your kids have evolved through, and what do you tell folks as they approach you and say, my kid's too young, or is this the right time, or all those kinds of questions?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do ask that question, and it truly is exactly what Hannah said. It's like every stage is different, and none of them are necessarily right or wrong. So my kids are currently 23, 17, and 14, 13, something like that. And so we are way past toddlers and diapers and all of that. But we did do that. I think my youngest one was 3 or 4 when he went on his first Disney cruise. And it was traveling with Owen, I saw a lot of him in our experience, and it was a lot of the same kind of thing. And so there's things that we're going to talk about as we get into the show about great ways that you can plan ahead, things that you can do to be proactive, things that are going to work and are not going to work. And I think, I don't think that there is a wrong age. It's gonna work. It really is kind of nice.
So my son Nick is now 13, and I often get this question both about Disney World and Disney Cruise. Is okay, my kid is too early. They won't remember it. And my response to that, I said, well, frankly, you're talking to the wrong person. My son did his first Disney cruise, and he was less than a year old. So, and he is a platinum at age 13. We do a lot of Disney cruising. But I don't, my response always is you have a first birthday for your kid, and they're not going to remember that either. This is a kind of about building memories together. And I think kids today remember almost as much through photographs as they do through actual experiences. So it's a very different thing. I will tell you that I've used Disney Cruise Line as a way to introduce my kid to travel in what has been a very safe way. So he has been very, very lucky. We have done Alaska. We have done Norway. We have done the Baltic Sea. We have done the Greek Isles. A couple years ago, we did Greece and Italy, and he happened to be studying those things in school. So he got to see the Parthenon, and he got to see Pompeii as he was studying it in school. And I could see in his face all these pieces, like all the things that he learned from school got kind of falling into place. And yet it was always a safe place where he got to come back to a Disney ship, which he feels very comfortable on. It was a lovely, lovely spot to be very comfortable. And it made travel less scary, I think, than sometimes it can feel, both for adults and for kids. So it was a great, I will tell you, I've been to St. Petersburg, and my family were all in the Hermitage. and I was
Mhm.
chasing pigeons in the center court. So it's definitely, and he was about 4 at that age, so it's a very different
Mhm.
experience. But let me just tell one other story, which is my favorite Disney Cruise Line story, and I think much like the Disney parks can create those special spaces that you can have with your kids. So I have cancer, and as soon after I told my kid, we went on a Disney cruise, and I had let my kid know I spent a lot of time, so it was all done in a very safe way. But he was clearly processing on it, and this was about the time that the Star Wars, one of the newer Star Wars came out. If this is a spoiler alert, turn off your videos for a second. But it's the one where Han Solo dies, and my kid kept coming back to Han Solo dying. And so finally, we're sitting by the pool. We're watching Funnel Vision. Some great movie is on, and my son brings this up again. And I said to him, Nick, you keep bringing this up, and you don't have anyone in your life who's died.
Hmm.
And he says, Daddy, I worry about you. And all of a sudden, I wish I was a couple margaritas back, because this feels like an important parenting moment.
Mm.
I think the Disney cruise space that feels so safe gave him the ability to have that conversation. You can have
Hmm.
those kinds of very safe conversations. And luckily, I think I've done a lot of therapy, and I was able to deal with it in a healthy way that was very positive. But I think those special moments can come in these spaces because they are so lovely, and they are so. I think there's a lot to offer on a Disney cruise ship that's above and beyond seeing the mouse or things like that. So,
Very true.
but Hannah, let's go to before you get on board, because I know people debate: do you tell your kid? Do you not tell your kid? What did you choose to do with Owen? Did you tell him you were doing this to get him excited, or did you say, okay, this is going to be a surprise?
I did. So he refers to Disney cruising as the Mickey boat. And so that was very fun for me. We tried to watch a couple of YouTube videos and build that excitement. At his age, I'm not really sure he comprehended all of that, but
Right.
that is for me, that's always been part of the joy of planning a vacation, is having something to look forward to. So for me, part of the vacation is the journey to get there. It is the packing, and it's picking out the door magnets for the cruise, those kind of things. So in terms of like preparing him for what to expect, at his age, we didn't really do much of that. But we did, definitely hype up that we were going on the Mickey boat. And it was very cute when we drove to the port. And so when we came over the bridge there at Port Canaveral, and he saw the Mickey boat, that was very exciting. And again, it's kind of to your point, it's one of those memories that was really special for me. And he's probably not going to call it the Mickey boat when he's 8 years
Right.
old. Maybe he does. And so for me, I'm probably always going to remember that, him being so excited to see the Mickey boat and just feeling like, okay, I'm an okay parent. Like we're about to have this special experience, and to see that joy on his face, I mean, as a parent, is truly the best thing in the world, and you can't put a price tag on that.
Hannah, I
And
got
I
to see
think
you for
all
5
of the
days.
10
You're an
adults
okay
that were
parent.
on this cruise have added the term Mickey boat to their vocabulary, because we
Exactly.
were
Yeah,
all saying it by the end of the cruise.
yeah. There you go.
And Hannah, we got to spend 5 days with you. You're more than an okay parent. You're an awesome parent. So
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Owen's a lovely kid. So,
Yeah.
Elaine, what do you tell folks who have young ones about in that preparation phase? What do you recommend that they start thinking about?
Yes. So, one of the number one tips that I give to parents, and this works with kids of any age, not just 3-year olds, but for any age, is get on YouTube. There's this great channel called The Disunplugged,
Mhm.
and there are so many videos of Disney Cruise Line. Find the ones for your specific ship. That is very, very, very important. And
Mm.
Yeah.
just watch the videos. Watch the tours of the ship. Watch, tours of the kids' clubs, that kind of thing. And watch them with your kids. because this is something, kids are, as much as we don't want to believe it or are in denial, they're very much creatures of habit, and they want to know what is going on at all times. They don't necessarily like surprises.
Right.
So if you are getting your kid up the morning that you're getting on the plane and we're like, get up, we're going on a Disney cruise, they're probably going to look at you like, what the heck are you talking about? So you want to really introduce it with them and get them involved in counting down the days. And look, this is the kids club where you get to hang out and you get to play with other kids and that kind of thing. And look, here's the pool and here's the water slide and here's the restaurants and stuff like that. It really, really, really helps for planning. And like I said, I have to stress it one more time. Make sure you are looking at your specific ship, because I know when you look at Disney Cruise Line, maybe to a new cruiser, all the ships look exactly the same, but they do have very different components on the inside. And if your kid is a
Star Wars fan.
Star Wars. If your kid is a Star Wars kid and that is their entire personality, and you are showing them the kids clubs that have Star Wars stuff inside of it, and then you go on one of the ships that doesn't have that particular thing, then they're going to be upset. So make sure you're looking at your specific ship. But that is truly one of the biggest things. And then one more thing is with packing, which I know we'll probably get into this, and Hannah will have tons of stuff to pack. But I just want to tell a little story that I happened to be scrolling on Facebook this week, and I saw a post from a mother that was on a ship on a cruise, and she was begging and pleading, is anybody else on my cruise? We need diapers. We are out of diapers. Because even though they packed enough diapers, because you're eating things that you don't normally eat, and there's lots of swimming and lots of stuff going on. They went through way more than they ever thought that they would go through. And she was desperate at this point. So overpack diapers, clothes, socks, shoes, all of that stuff. I'm a serial overpacker, but especially when it comes to young kids, I think you're going to go through more than what you think you're going to go through. And this isn't like a Disney World trip. There isn't a Target down the street. So
yeah, exactly. They do have some of those things in the stores, but they tend to be more expensive. It's better if you bring them. And let me go to packing in a second. Couple of things very tactically that I wanted to touch on. One is you can get a pack and play on board. Request it early when you book. That's an important one. They also can put bed rails on the beds for you if you want to do that. I often for Owen, I would have probably done both because I don't necessarily know where, he can then choose. You can always get rid of the pack and play if you don't need it. When you get to your stateroom, you can get a diaper genie and that's kind of critical. And they will also give you a bottle warmer. Just ask your stateroom host for that. You don't have to ask for that beforehand. So those things are available to you and very helpful. The other thing that I always remind is on the Disney Cruise Line pools, kids have to be potty trained if they want to go into the bigger pools. They can use the splash pads if they're not potty trained, but the bigger pools, they need to be potty trained. And that's federal rules. That's true on every single ship that's out there. But just be aware I frankly used it with my son he was resisting being potty trained, and you can go in the big pool if you're. So it can be a kind of enticement to be potty trained. Swim diapers are not allowed. You have to be potty trained. So talk a little bit about packing, Hannah, just so we can wrap up on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with Elaine. I think, if you've ever traveled with kids before, you think you pack enough and you never do. You always forget something. And to both of your points, there are items available on board, such as diapers, swim diapers, wipes, baby lotion, infant Tylenol, those kind of essentials, but they are smaller qualities, or they don't have every single size of diaper. So essentials like that, you definitely want to make sure that you have. Also, I know like on our cruise, there on the Facebook group for our cruise, there was a large group of people who had their luggage lost coming to Orlando, and not everybody got their luggage in time for the cruise. So essential items like your medication or your kids' diapers, try to pack those in your carry-on with you if you can. Bring those things on board the ship with you as well, because your luggage doesn't arrive at your stateroom as soon as you get on board the ship. There is a little bit of, maybe a depending on how early you get on board, your luggage isn't going to get there until maybe 4 or 5 p.m. I've had even show up later sometimes. So yeah, for packing things that are important, or things that I've packed in the past that you can't buy on board. My kid is a big snuggler. And so sleep is important. I want him to sleep well on vacation, which sometimes is a feat. So do I have to pack his favorite stuffed animal? Yeah. Does he sleep better? Yes. Also, other things you can bring, as long as it's a prepackaged item. You can bring like if they like the pouches, or your child takes formula, Pediasure, things like that, you can bring those on board with you again in your carry-on, because that is one thing. We're kind of getting to an age where we can find something for Owen on board, included in the menu, included in the buffet. But if you have a picky eater, or if your kid requires certain things, be sure to pack those, because again, not something you want to buy on board. We do pack swim diapers, just, for the splash pads, for going to Castaway Key, going to Lookout Key, things like that. You talked about amenities in the room. This is the first time that we have struggled getting Owen to sleep when we're on vacation. He is out of his element. He is out of his routine. And so a lot of times, I'll be honest, he ends up sleeping in the bed with us, which means nobody really sleeps great, at least not in our case. So, but this time I had heard about this, but never actually requested it. You can request from your stateroom host character sheets for the kids' beds, for the upper berth pull down bed, and for the sofa bed that converts. So I believe on all the ships they either have Princess Designs, or they have Marvel. So my son picked out Avengers sheets, and that was a big deal for him. He was very excited. He called it his Superman bed. And he was very excited to go to sleep in that bed every night. And that, let me tell you, is a win. So, yeah, highly recommend that. Just a little extra magic when you cruise.
Yeah, no, totally. The other thing that I think is important to remember is, and I wanted to ask you about this, Hannah, is people are often concerned about the veranda. And if I have a little one, particularly those who climb, when I'm planning my cruise, do I just not get a veranda because I'm just worried about my kid climbing up and going? How do you? I have some language that I use for that, but what do you tell folks?
Yeah, I think, it depends on the person. Like if you maybe are a first time cruiser and you're very anxious about it, I think do what's comfortable for you. Because I understand, and trust me, I have a climber. I have a kid who's constantly jumping off the back of the sofa, and getting into situations where you're like, how'd you get up there? How'd you manage that? I looked away for 2 seconds. I cannot recommend a veranda on Disney Cruise Line enough, though. Couple of reasons is my child goes to bed earlier than I do. It gives me, even though most rooms at Disney Cruise Line have a privacy curtain between the living area with the sofa versus the area with the bed, it's really nice to be able to go out on the balcony and maybe have a glass of wine, or be able to have a conversation, normal volume.
Right.
Also, Disney, safety is always the first priority, and that's very apparent with the verandas. The door, so there's a top lock at the door that I don't think even if your kids stood on one of the tables in the room could reach it. And then the door handle to go out it's kind of like, I struggle with it sometimes.
Right.
I struggled with it every single time.
Yeah.
You have to pull it down and turn it.
At the same time that you're pulling this, turning it, it's like a two-hand situation. Yeah.
So I do think and I told my husband, if we had the balcony open, I'm like, do not take your eyes off of him. Okay, yeah. I am going to the bathroom, watch him. So there's definitely some things with that. But if you're shutting the veranda door, I would be shocked if your toddler, small child could open the door. And like I said, it creates this extra space to be able to, because the thing is, you're not going to leave your kid in the room by its. Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, but again, I talk to clients sometimes who are just like, you know what, if you're anxious about it, don't worry about it, but just know that safety is a priority and Disney's got you.
The
railings are very tall too.
Yeah.
The railings are tall. Even on me are tall.
They're also glass below. So in the end, there's not really a reason for most staterooms. If you're there are certain categories where they do what's called a white wall, and then it's not glass below. And I would be concerned about my kid climbing up then. But otherwise, it's glass. And so they can see out. So there isn't really the reason to climb out, to climb up. With Nick, for me, we were very clear that this was... you have to be outside with an adult. You could not, if he ever went out there without an adult, that was all of a sudden, he cannot go at all for the rest of the cruise. So if he wanted to go out on the veranda, he needed to be with somebody else. And I didn't even tell my kid about the top lock. That way there was no, he wasn't even trying. So those couple things, I think, made it a little bit more secure and made it at least put me in some level of comfort. So he was fine. Anything else folks need to know about that, Elaine, that you share with them?
Yes. So along the same kind of thing, if you do not come outside without an adult, and your stuffed Figaro never comes out onto the veranda.
Correct.
If they have that special stuffed animal, it needs to stay inside. It does not come onto the veranda because...
Yes, I will tell you, we were on the Alaska cruise and Nick got a salmon and a stuffed animal, and the salmon has been returned to the sea, let me tell you. So
that can happen pretty easily.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Yeah.
Other things pre-cruise. One is, again, overarching throughout all this, your kid better than anybody else. We're giving you information, but your kid is your kid, and do what makes all of you feel comfortable. The other thing is, so about telling them, I have a good friend who their son is, if you tell him something, he is then man of 1,000 questions. And so we're actually going on a cruise with them coming up for my birthday. And they're not going to tell him about the cruise because they will tell him a little bit before, but they want to be in a place where they don't want to have to deal with 7 months of 10,000 questions. So your kid very well. Each kid is, of course, unique. So you do what you think is best. There is also a PDF that Disney has, and you can ask your dreams agent and they can send it to you. But it's a PDF that will walk them through the different parts of the ship, and it has different things. It's really kind of helpful. You can write on there which ship you're going on, and it kind of lets them know the forward, the aft, the different parts of the ship. It's very cute and very helpful. So definitely look that up before you go.
They can also get a phone call as well.
Oh,
they can get a phone call from Mickey that tells them that they're going on a cruise as well.
Yeah, which is very fun. We spent a lot more time on that than I thought. Sorry about that, but I thought it was all great stuff. Let's talk about Embarkation Day. Embarkation Day, I would say it's filled with anticipation, but also there's a lot of moving pieces on that day. Talk about how Owen handled this, that getting on board.
Okay, getting on board, great, very exciting. You're getting on the Mickey boat. We go eat chicken tenders. We see a character. Everything's good. We're very happy, very excited. The muster drill though that you do that I've gotten wrong. I've gotten wrong twice now, and actually Elaine was witness to this. So the first cruise that we did with him, so when you find out your assembly station, it can be in one of the restaurants, it can be in the theater, or it can be on one of the outside decks. This time it was on the outside deck. My kid doesn't want to, he knows, he's seen the splash pad. He has seen the Sweet on You shop with the cupcakes. He has had ice cream. He does not want to stand in line for 20 minutes and hear a safety spiel. I had a very hard time getting him to just stand there for the drill. So I wish I would have brought some sort of entertainment. I wish I didn't even bring his sippy cup with me. I wish I would have brought him like water or juice or maybe a snack or a toy. He did end up watching something on my phone, but that was a mental note I made for next time. You just get on the ship. There's so much to see and do. He did not want to wait. Also, they do sound the alarm for the ship, and it is very loud. So that can be scary. He did okay, but just, maybe think about earplugs or covering their ears or just having a conversation with them before it happens. So it's definitely, next time I'll be packing maybe like a treat, like a lollipop, something to just, hey, I just need you to stand here for 20 minutes.
Right. Well, and it was on one of our previous shows, I did my rant because I think those things are horrible. Elaine disagrees with me, but I think they're not useful. And a lot of the comments that were made were, "Oh, this helps kids." I don't know what kids are being helped by this. It's not. I think there are better ways to do it, and every other cruise line is doing that. And it's just terrible in terms of guest experience, both for older people and for younger kids. It's horrible. I think it's not a good learning experience, but I think you can prepare your kid and let them know we have to do this. This is like doing a fire drill at school, or this is like in the airplane, and it's going to take a little bit, and we just have to get through it. And I agree. Pack something. I should have mentioned at the port. I always bring a little bit of food, like some Cheerios or something like that they can munch on, because there isn't always food there's plenty of food once you get on the ship, but when you're waiting to get on the ship, it's good to have something that, and something like that. If you have a box of Cheerios or something, that gummy bears or something that you can entice them that, this isn't that long. We'll get through it. Here, have a gummy bear, and keep handing those things out is very, very helpful. Right. Did you when you got on board, did you go up and get food in the, Elaine and I sat and there, you can do a sit down lunch, or you can go up to, in this case, Cabanas, whatever the buffet is. Which did you guys do?
So both times I've cruised with Owen, we went up to the buffet, in this case, Cabanas. For us, I will tell you, the buffet the first day, Embarkation Day, is hectic. And so it is stressful. So the only positive for me, though, with going to the buffet is that there is such a wide range of options. So I was able to grab several things for him to try. Hindsight, for me personally, I would have liked the sit down experience, just because the buffet is, it's sometimes you have a hard time finding a table. Maybe you're waiting in line at the buffet. Also, though, my kid, sometimes sitting down for any sort of sit down meal can be a challenge. And so things like the buffet or the grab and go options by the pool, there's not a time commitment. You grab your food, you eat your food, you move on. But I could go either way.
They may want to get in the pools. They may want an ice cream. I tell folks, pack at least the kids' swimming trunks so they can jump in the
Yes.
pools at that phase. They may want to do that. What we usually do when Nick was younger was we would find a space up on that top deck, usually outside near the pools, but near the and we would we'd have a place where he could get food. He could go swimming. He could go in the splash pads. He can do the aqua mouse or aqua duck or whichever one is going, but he knew where we all were, and then folks could go off and do their things, and it's nice. Elaine, what do you tell folks about that? I know one of the things we both tell parents, and I'm going to have Hannah talk about this after, but is to go down to the Kids Club. That's a great day to introduce your kids to the Kids Club space and get them kind of at least used to that environment, right?
1000%. This is just like when I say, watch videos online. Go in advance. On that first day, the kids clubs during Embarkation, the kids clubs will all be open, so that you can go down there. And this is one of the few times that parents can actually go inside with your kids. And so this is an amazing opportunity to show them, this is where we go in, and this is where we wash our hands, and this is where you get to play, and this is your special place that you get to play, and go around and play with them and show them some of the things, and maybe say hi to other kids and say hi to the cast members that are down there, so that they can really get used to, okay, I'm going to be coming here, mom and dad's not going to be here, that kind of thing. So that is definitely one of the biggest things that you can do to be able to utilize those clubs.
And Hannah, also part of it, at least for my son, I had to let him know, okay, here's how, when you're done here, here's how you get out. And I had the cast member talk to them so they felt comfortable with the cast members, but so he didn't feel like he was trapped, like he was, you're here to have fun. I'm coming to get you whenever you're ready to go. So there's, and also to hopefully that he can meet other kids and maybe make some friends early on.
Right. Hannah, exactly. Did you ever have that experience where Owen called you and said, I'm ready to go?
Yeah.
Oh, just a half a dozen times. Yeah. So I know we're going to talk about that. This was Owen's first experience with the Oceaneer Club. We did go, but we didn't spend a lot of time in there because we're going through a phase where we want to hang out with mom and dad. And unless it's the open house time that you were alluding to, mom and dad are not hanging out in the Oceaneer Club. But I do absolutely agree that going that first day, having that introduction is essential, especially with little ones. Explain the process. Because there's so much cool stuff in there, but when you're standing at the entrance and there's all these kids and there's all these people and you don't know what's in there, it can be very intimidating. Also, since you do have to be potty trained for the Oceaneer Club, you can, if you have a freshly potty trained little one, being able to show them the bathroom and maybe have a run through of that with them is very helpful as well. Also, one thing I kind of didn't think about is there is a process when you go into the Oceaneer Club and when you leave. And as much as I love those very cool hand washing machines that they have, so you stick your hands into these machines, it washes it soap water, and then you dry your hands off afterwards. You do that. They do require all the kids to do that before entering the kids club. Is a 3-year-old is not going to know what that is or know to do that without some.
It looks kind of scary, right? I mean, you're sticking your hands in this.
What's going to happen in there? Yeah. So I agree. Going that first day and just walking through it, experience it, I think can only be a good thing. And it's fun for the family. I think it's cool to at least do that one time so you can kind of have that shared experience. And those spaces are very cool. Even when I've traveled without my kid, I always go to an Oceaneer Club open house because they're incredible.
Yeah, no, they're amazing spaces, and a couple of other kind of tactical approaches scholarship kind of things. For the very little kids, so one of the questions I often get asked, they do have age ranges for the different kids clubs, and they actually changed it about a year or 2 years ago to 10 is 3 to 10 is that first tier of kids clubs. People say, oh, I have one kid who's 9 and one kid who's 11. How firm are they? They're firm. They're not. They're so. Just be aware of that. And the other thing, but in those open house times, and they will happen at various times through the cruise, anyone can go in. So if you have a 2-year-old, I was traveling a couple years ago with a family that had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Well, the 2-year-old couldn't get into the kids club because he wasn't old enough. And literally he was days away from, but as I say, they're firm about it. During that open house time, we could take them in and he got to experience the place. Also, for those very young ones, they will close off one of the areas and have character time. So one of the Disney friends will come and spend time with just the little ones, like 3 and under. So they have some dedicated space and time. So watch out for that. You can always ask in the kids club itself, and they'll be able to direct you. Elaine, anything else folks should know about kid club space?
Yes. So what I was trying to prompt Hannah to say was that they actually got a call while we were at Palo Brunch that Owen was ready to be picked up, and it was kind of one of those, yeah. It was kind of one of those, her and her husband looking at each other like, not it, kind of a situation. Oh, yeah. But one thing that we learned through that process is that if you communicate that to the kids club and let them know we are at Palo during these times, they will actually work with the kid to keep them there. So I think that's what we discovered. What did they tell you exactly?
This is our first time doing that. And so I got the text and I was like, oh no, code red, like we got to go. And then we told our server and he was like, he's like, next time, especially Palo Brunch, like they can call down to the Oceaneer Club and see the situation. This happened a few other times. And what I learned was that, because they're a little bit older, if they say they want to leave or they show interest in leaving, they are going to send you that message. What they don't tell you is that your kid, after, especially when they're really little, like my kid tried to leave, just leave because, hey, mom and dad are out there. There's a pool out there, all these things. He then very quickly moved on to being happy and wanting to go play in Andy's room with, Buzz and Woody and all of that. So, and that's what we found out as we went down there. Like, they were like, oh yeah, he did show interest in leaving and now he's happy. He's playing again. He's good. There was another time we took him. So the, both Lookout Key and Castaway Key have essentially an Oceaneer club and the other kid clubs on the islands or at the destination. And so at Lookout Key, we took him to the Oceaneers Club there. And he very clearly was like, and I heard them even say, they're like, no, he said he wants to go twice. And so anyways, but they'll tell you that and do it in a way that you've got the full scoop of what's going on, and they send you a message through the app. So just make sure you have the DCL Navigator app download. Of course, notifications are turned on, that kind of thing. So, that was definitely a learning curve for us, for sure.
I do actually have one more thing that I want to say, because this is something that comes up a lot. So if you have a child that does have any sort of special needs, I talk about a lot. One of my children is autistic. We talk to the cast members at the kids club on that very first open house, and we just kind of introduce him, and we kind of just say, any kind of trigger or anything like that that may happen, and just kind of just make them aware. Here's the thing: you are not going to get in the Oceaneers clubs, you are not going to get any sort of one-on-one they are not going to, if you have a child that has severe special needs, they cannot assign somebody to be with your child the entire time they're in there. They just don't have the manpower or the ability to do that. But if you have a child that is functioning, but maybe there is something that the cast member needs to know, go ahead and tell them that so they can make those notes and you can work that through that. Because we did have a few things that we had to work through that first time, and it all worked out, but it's because it's kind of one of those extra things. So,
okay, Elaine, that made me think of one other thing is I knew it before going in, but then seeing it in person, the Oceaneers Club is ages 3 to 10. 3 to 10 is a pretty big swing, especially like my kid is freshly 3. And a lot of the kids, there were a lot of kids on board. So the Oceaneer Club was very busy, but it did seem to be that like there weren't a whole lot of 3-year-olds in the Oceaneer Club. They did, they put a sticker on his back that literally had a big number 3 on it. And one of the youth activities counselors each time would kind of like take him by the hand and like lead him into the Oceaneers Club. And it did seem to be every time I picked him up, he kind of had someone with him, and I kind of watched a little bit. So it's definitely not like one-on-one, but they do kind of seem to like the younger ones kind of just keep an extra eye out for them, so to say.
And I think they're doing more programming that where it because that's a big, a 3-year-old is so much different than a 10-year-old, right? So they're trying to give some space to, they'll do different programming for those different age groups, and there will be some things like if Thor is down there, that may be something that everyone can do, but there are certainly things that will be more tailored to 3-year-olds and more tailored to a 9-year-old, say. One other thing that I wanted to mention was we mentioned how they're fairly firm about the cutoff ages. That being said, if your 10-year-old wants to go to the edge rather than being in the younger kids club, they will allow you to do that. You just need to go and touch base with the cast members, and they'll be able to do that. If your tween wants to go to the more teen club, they'll allow you to do that. They won't allow a 9-year-old to go into the older clubs, but within certain limits, if it's give or take, they will certainly allow you to go up in terms of kids clubs. But it's just the age limits are fairly stringent on going down. So 11-year-olds won't be allowed in the younger kids club. So did that all make sense? I kept talking and okay, perfect. Let's we lots of stuff in the kids club. I wanted to talk a little bit about character meet and greets. Is Owen a character meet and greeter? Is this something that he really likes to do, and how was that experience?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we love about Disney Cruise Line is it does feel a little bit easier on board to meet the characters. They have several, they have so many meet and greet times throughout the day, and then obviously being on a ship, there's going to be less people than there are in a theme park. So that's one thing that we really enjoy. Also, because of that, we seem to have more like spontaneous interactions with the characters. Like, as you mentioned, they do come to the kids clubs, or, you might see them kind of like frolicking through the ship. So it's definitely a highlight for us. One thing I know I talk to clients a lot is there is a meet and greet opportunity called the Royal Gathering. It's free. It's included with your cruise. But essentially it is or most of the princesses in the atrium at a designated time. You do have to reserve this like an activity. It can be hard to get. You book it a month out before your cruise. And so I recommend, if you have a princess fan, definitely making that a priority to book, but then also being aware of that because I have a friend, this happened to them. They were not able to book the Royal Gathering. And so walking through the atrium while that was happening and then trying to explain, oh, no, sorry, we can't go see the princesses, that can be really hard at a younger age. So I think just kind of being aware of that and setting some expectations. If, like I said, you have a princess fan, definitely mention the Royal Gathering, ask about that, because we can give you some tips on how to book it. things like that. But yeah, for us, character meet and greets are a big perk of cruising with Disney.
It's Royal Gathering 30 days out. So it's midnight, 30 days out, regardless of your Castaway Club level. So it really is, if you want to get in there, it's 30 days out. You're up until midnight Eastern. And if you don't get it, it's not the only princesses that are going to be on board. They will be out other times. So it's not the only time you're going to see princesses. It's just a special ticketed where they're all together in one space. So it's nice to be able to do it, but it's not going to ruin your trip. Also, if you don't get it, keep checking. True with all activities on board, things change all the time. Keep checking. People change their mind. They do different things. Keep going back and checking and see if it becomes available. And when you get on board, check again and ask them, hey, any openings for the Royal Gathering? There may be something that comes up. But I know it's a big thing that people get concerned about. So it is hard to get, but it's from what I hear, my son was not a princess person, but from what I hear, it's people really enjoy it. So Elaine, anything on that you want to add?
So that will be the same, not just for the princesses, but like on the Alaska cruise, I think there's like a frozen version of it. And then also on any of the specialty cruises. So Marvel Day at Sea, the Pixar Day at Sea, rest in peace, Star Wars Day at Sea, it's the same kind of thing. They will have one of those situations where at 30 days out at midnight, you can make a reservation and knock out like 5 Marvel characters in one 15-minute span. So if that is something that is very important to you, know that there are other opportunities besides just princesses on some of these cruises. So.
Yep.
Yes.
Let's talk about pools and splash zones. We mentioned earlier pools, you have to be potty trained, but talk about a little bit. One of the great things about Disney Cruise Line pools is there are lifeguards everywhere. A lot of other cruise lines either don't have them or, it shocks me that they don't have them, but there are a lot of cruise lines that do not. There are lifeguards there. There are also life vests, so you don't have to bring your floaties and things like that. Those are both there and on the Disney the 2 Disney-owned destinations. So those are there for you to use. But how did Owen like the pools, and what was his experience?
So he loves the splash pads. I mean, he loves a splash pad anywhere, anytime. So on the Disney Fantasy, it is Finding Nemo themed. The other cruise that he went on was the Disney Wish, and it's Toy Story themed. And he could spend probably all day in there. I was excited this trip now that we are going through the pie training process, things like being, as you mentioned, going to the pool was a possibility. He honestly had no interest in that. I know it's not the case for all kids, but those splash pads were a huge draw. They do get very busy because, let me tell you, kids love splash pads. So as a parent, I would recommend trading off, right? Like, because your kid may want to stay in the splash pad the entire time. I can guarantee you don't want to be in the splash pad all day. So anyways, that was a lot of fun for him.
The other thing that's nice, just to add on, it's different in the Fantasy from the Disney Dream, its sister ship, is there's an additional splash pad that's kind of underneath the aqueduct. It's one deck up and back a little, aft a little bit. And so there's a second splash pad that has water coming down and all sorts of stuff. It's also very fun. So it gives you 2 splash pad areas so you're not, the Finding Nemo one is awesome, but it's nice to have a second place to go as well. So just FYI, it's one of the things if you're choosing ships, it's one of the nice things about the Disney Fantasy. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go continue.
Oh, no. I mean, really, that was it. All the Disney ships have some sort of like feature slide with a height well, both of the slides have a height requirement. And then there's usually a Mickey slide with a lower height requirement. So my son was tall enough to do that as well. They supply life jackets on board too. So, and just, for me, I do have a personal opinion about ships and which one's better for the family pools. For me, I think the new class of ships, the Wish and the Treasure so far, I like those pools better for families. I think there's more of them. But I know that people don't like the adult area as much because it's a little bit smaller on those ships. So it is kind of a give and take. Again, if your kid, keep in mind the kids clubs, I mean, the kids absolutely adore those, and that gives you the space to also enjoy those adult pool areas.
Elaine, I don't want to race through the difference in the different style ships of the Magic, Wonder, Fantasy, and Dream all have very similar style pools, but they are very different from the Wish, Wish, Treasure, soon to be Destiny, and other Wish class ships. Talk a little bit about. People often talk about Kid Soup. Those are likely on the older ships, the Dream Fantasy, because the pools are different. Talk a little bit about, give folks a sense of, paint a picture for them of the different types of pools.
Yeah, so that is kind of one of the nice things on the Wish and the Treasure is that there's actually 11 different pools. And so it makes it, granted they're smaller pools, but it makes it kind of nice because you don't have that one giant pool that on a sea day every single person wants to be in and you can't find a chair and that kind of thing. You have all of these other options that you can go find one of these ones that maybe like the Chip and Dale one is like the hidden secret that like nobody ever goes to, and it's fantastic and it's great that you could take little kids there because it's so shallow and that kind of thing. So it really does give you other opportunities, and it kind of makes it, if you have a kid that really wants to be in that water, like Hannah said, you don't want to necessarily sit in that splash pad all day. Having this variety of pools means that you get to discover and go to a new pool every day. So that makes it a little bit more interesting. It gives them variety and things to do. So yeah, I think that is. Did Owen, was he tall enough, or did he go on the slide at all, or on either of the slides actually?
He was tall enough for the Mickey slide, the smaller one, and then he chickened out of it. So yeah, which is funny because I think that's the thing about kids though, and setting expectations is that he loves water slides at home, and he usually, he's the first one who wants to ride Slinky Dog and that kind of thing. But you just, you take kids out of their routine and their environment, and so you just, you try something, and if it doesn't stick, that's okay, and you set your expectations. So,
I think my kids were the opposite because they were like slide junkies, so it was every slide 100 times. So that was awesome. That was our thing.
I will tell you there are a couple other water features that are on board. There's one on the starboard side. I believe it's starboard. Yeah, starboard side that kind of has a fountain coming in it. It's not very deep, that the kids can play around in, and they seem to have a really great time. There's a similar one that's above the adult pool in the Disney Fantasy that tends to be more quiet if you're looking for a more quiet space. It's one deck up from the regular pool deck and midship, a little bit more midship, again, over the adult pool space. I will tell you, I mentioned this family earlier that had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. He loved the showers that are up on the Disney Fantasy, and I swear to you that I pressed the shower for the water to come down probably 250 times, and he played in the shower. And that's where I spent probably an hour and a half just pressing the button and watching it go. And they were watching Disney movies, and they were in heaven. So there's a lot of water features up on top, and so there's plenty of things to do and plenty of places to go. But look out for those different things. It's really it's definitely a fun space. And again, on the top deck, the Funnel Vision is playing Disney movies all the time. So that's my son's favorite thing, was having an ice cream and watching a Disney movie on Funnel Vision, and he still likes doing that, by the way, at age 13. So. I'm going to shift to deck parties and fireworks because it can be a thing for little ones. So let's talk about deck parties first, because there's a couple of deck parties. pirate one is later at night. So how did you deal with that with Owen? And because it can be like 10 o'clock at night, and it can be late for a kid.
Right, exactly. So we typically, I don't think, I'm trying to remember. This is terrible. I don't even remember if we took him to the pirate fireworks this time. I know
Given
we did not
he
the
was
first
in his pirate
cruise.
outfit and he was falling asleep at the dinner table, I'm guessing he did not make the
I don't
fireworks.
think he. I don't think he did.
I can't remember because we were all at the deck by Paolo, so I can't remember
I
if
was.
you were there.
Yeah, that's right. No, I was. I remember that. I was, and Owen obviously was not. But yeah, the fireworks I believe are somewhere around 10 p.m. And so that obviously is very hard to make for a little one. And again, setting expectations, it's kind of like, okay, how much do they love fireworks? How much do they love pirates? Also, a bedtime is a pretty important routine when they're little. Now he enjoys the sail away party, which is a great way to see a lot of the characters, and it kind of builds the excitement of that first day of being on a cruise. I will be honest though, we did not even do that this time, because after you do the muster drill, everybody then goes up to the sail away party. It can be, hard getting up and climbing all the stairs, and it's a big crowd, things like that. And Owen was we were at that kind of peak nap time. And the joy of going on a Disney cruise is that you know that you're going to get to see the characters throughout the cruise. So we actually chose to forego that this time, but it is something he enjoys. And then the pirates, oh goodness, I'm forgetting the name of it. On Pirate Night, there is a show with the characters that happens in between the two dinner times, kind of in place of seeing one of the evening shows. He enjoys that because again, it's Mickey, it's Minnie, it's Goofy, Donald, everybody in their pirate costumes. It's on the pool deck, so it's a big open space. And I found, for Owen, he was excited to see the characters. His attention span is small at this age. And so for him, it was like, oh, cool, there's Mickey and there's music and there's other kids. And I get to run around on the deck and like a wild man. And that was really fun for him. So again, I think Disney Cruise Line is great because there are all these opportunities to see the characters, to have this Disney experience without necessarily like waiting in line or having a big time commitment. You can go enjoy it and then move on to a million other activities.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of so the way for me, sleep was very important for my kid. So at that age, I did not get him. If we did kind of a negotiation as to, okay, if you want to stay up to see the fireworks, you have to take a nap during the day. And if we were doing things as an excursion that day, I didn't give him the choice. He had to go to bed. We were not seeing we're lucky. It wasn't his first cruise, won't be his last cruise. So it was in a different space than a lot of other people who this is their one cruise that they're doing. But we were very cognizant of sleep because, I'm like you, sleep matters. And so again, your kid, just realize that the fireworks are late at night. Did you have noise coming in from the fireworks, and did that bother him as he was sleeping?
No, I did ask my husband about this, and we really didn't.
Right.
We also, one thing we pack is I like a sound machine. And so we use a sound machine that does kind of buffer out some of that noise, but yeah, no issues.
I will tell you, Elaine loves Pirate Night and Elaine, you had the fanciest outfit this time for Pirate Night. I believe it was making its debut appearance this cruise.
It was. I had a brand new costume for Pirate Night for this cruise.
It was awesome.
So it's one of our things, and I didn't. There is a there is. You were talking about how fireworks were so late. There is that earlier show. I don't know if you mentioned it. That is geared for younger kids.
Yeah.
That is a great option if they can't make it to the fireworks. But one of the other really cool things about Pirate Night is that, all of the characters have their pirate costumes on. They're doing pirate activities in the kids clubs. And so
There are pirate music in the hallways.
Music in the hallways.
Yeah.
When we were at dinner, the whole dinner was lit up, and I think even his magic band was glowing red in there. And so it was just it's a really fun vibe. And if your kids really like dressing up and doing things, that's something really cool to do. So
one of my favorite things to do are the sailing into the new year. I'm not a big New Year's Eve fan, and so I love being on a Disney cruise. And they do fireworks at midnight on the Disney ships for New Year's Eve. But they do a similar kind of thing that they do for Pirate Night. So they have a countdown to 8:00 for the little kids who are not going to make midnight.
So good.
And they and all the characters are there, and they have a full-on dance party with confetti. It's held in the atrium or the Great Hall, and it's a great way to celebrate New Year's Eve, and in a very kid-friendly way. I love that Disney thinks about those kinds of things. It's so awesome, because sometimes I don't make midnight, but I did one year. I was on the Fantasy, I was on the Dream, and just after midnight, I was doing the Aqueduct, and the person in front of us was decked out in his tuxedo doing the Aqueduct. So doing the Aqueduct in a new year is kind of fun. So one I wanted to touch on, we're going to wrap up, and we're actually going to break this into two shows because we have so much to cover, and I think it's really helpful stuff for parents. So we're going to break this into two shows. But before we wrap up, I wanted to touch base on the shows, because the shows are so awesome. But as you mentioned, Owen's attention span is not always the longest. So did you get to the shows? Did he enjoy them? How'd you deal with that?
Sure. So I wasn't sure. We went to two of the shows on board. They did a matinee showing of Frozen on our cruise, and we went to that. And we also took him to Aladdin on board the Fantasy. What we found kind of worked for us is sitting in the balcony, because it's a little, I guess, quieter up there. You're able to get out easier.
Easy entry, easy exit, right?
That's right. So Owen did not make it through either of the shows, but he had a good time. He did, he really enjoyed seeing some of the musical performances and some of the puppets and things like that. So it was still very much worth doing for us. And we enjoy the shows too. So it was nice to do that as a family. But did we make it through either of the shows? No, we did not. I do feel like each ship kind of does a similar show, like a sailing away type show, usually the first night, that is kind of like an introduction to being on the ship, and it has like all the characters, and it's a little bit shorter of a production. That one is a great one to take like little kids to, because the story is not that involved. It's a ton of characters really quick. So even though that may as an adult not be my favorite of the productions, it's great for little ones. I think, again, just set your expectations. I think it's definitely worth trying with your kids, because the shows truly are, especially the two that I mentioned, Frozen and Aladdin. It is like seeing a Broadway show. So it's worth a shot. And like I said, my kid didn't make it through either one, but did he enjoy 30 minutes of it? Did we enjoy 30 minutes of it? Absolutely.
And they're not a full, like a Broadway show is probably 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. This is not going to be that. It's going to be 50 minutes or so, depending. They do have, like, on the Wish class ships, they have Seas the Adventure, SEAS, cute, get that?
Oh, that's right.
And that's shorter. That's probably even 30, 40 minutes, maybe. It's, as you say, shorter, has a bunch of different characters, so it's very accessible for kids. Don't miss Moana if you're on the Disney Treasure. Moana is just so lovely. But I think I don't miss any Disney show, so I will tell you, my better half, if he hears the What Makes the Gardens Grow one more time, he's going to, probably come after me. But I like it, and I sing it for days afterwards just to drive me a little crazy. Elaine, anything you tell folks about shows and thinking about?
I don't think I have anything to add about shows. I mean, it is what it is. Your kid can sit through it or they can't sit through it. I mean, maybe if you want to try and you don't think that your kid can sit through it, maybe sit towards the back on an aisle so that you can make a quick getaway. But that's about all I can really say. I would say familiarize yourself with what the show is before trying to take them, because like if you're on the Wish, the show with Goofy is going to be great for little kids, whereas their version of The Little Mermaid may not be great for younger kids, just because I don't think that they're going to understand what's really going on, because it's very like Jesus Christ Superstar vibes. And so, but I mean, it's what it is.
I know. We've talked about it before. That's why I'm laughing.
What it is, they roll out the trunk and they start handing out costumes. I mean, is this not Jesus Christ Superstar? Like, it really is. Yeah. So but the Goofy show is going to hold a little kid's attention, where, he's in charge and he's stealing the ship. He's steering the ship and he's the captain and all of that. So familiarize yourself with what the show is before you attempt to take a small child to it.
The one thing I will tell you, particularly for the Moana show on the Disney Treasure, but for most of particularly those style shows, the Disney shows, Aladdin, those ones are popular. So you probably, I see people lining up 45 minutes early. I don't do that. But I do sit on the lower level. There's an aisle in the middle section that goes across from port to starboard. I sit right behind there, and somewhere in that section. And it does, I inevitably have to visit Mr. Restroom in the middle of the show, so it makes it easy for me to get out without disturbing people. If you want front row seats, you're going to have to get there 30, 40 minutes early before it starts. So just be warned of that, because people do get excited for these, and they're really worth seeing. They do an awesome, I mean, the Disney shows that they do on board are really, really exceptional. So with that, I'm going to put a pause here, and we're going to come back and do part 2 of this, because there's so much good stuff, and Owen was so great in sharing all of his important stuff with us. So I will. We're going to come back and do part 2. So we'll be back. But just a reminder that so much. We also did an overview of the Disney Fantasy. We're going to do. We did a best and worst on the Disney Fantasy itself. So a lot of stuff that we're already doing. We're doing more as we really break down this. We got to learn so much in this ship. So stay tuned. Much more to come. As I've said before, we'd love for you to book your trip with Dreams Unlimited Travel. Literally, it helps pay for what we do here. And I'll tell you, I was a Dreams client before I was a Dreams agent, so I understand the value of what we do. But the best place to start, go to dreamsunlimitedtravel.com, select your Disney cruise on the first page, and then on the second page, there's a pull-down menu of all the Dreams agents. You can select one, or you don't have to. All the Dreams agents, they're super awesome, and they're more than willing to help you, and they're going to give you a great experience. So, but I also want to, Elaine, how can folks get in touch with you?
My email is Elaine, ELAINE, at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. But like Chris said, if you're looking for a quote, the quickest way to get a quote is to send it through the Dreams website, and then you can select my name if you're wanting to work with me at the drop down, because that's going to get you that quote a lot faster than get buried in the inbox. So
perfect. Hannah, how do folks get in touch with you?
You'll never guess. It's Hannah at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com, and it's HANNAH. It's a palindrome, like race car and Taco Cat.
I just have to say, I was sad getting on this cruise, because the last cruise that we got on with Chris and Hannah and I, when we got on, we announced that we were Hannah and the Bananas. And I was very sad getting on the ship and not being able to be Hannah and the Bananas.
Something tells me we'll get to do that again.
Exactly. If you want to reach me, I'm Chris V. I'm not just Chris. There's another Chris, but I'm Chris V at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. So that's how you reach me. Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to our producer, Jimmy Valdez. So awesome. And he was on this cruise with us too. So thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Depending on where you're watching or hearing this, please like, subscribe, leave a review. There's something called the algorithms. Apparently, it really helps us. So if you want to help us, please do that. And of course, if you have topics for us, you can leave those in the YouTube comments on the DCL Fan Facebook page, where there's a whole bunch of people talking Disney cruise. Yeah, a bunch of fans. It's really cool. Or you can just send me an email. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm also stalking on the YouTube page, so you can put it there too. And we're going to be back with part 2 talking about Owen's adventure on board. So stay tuned. With that, safe travels. We'll see you real soon.